this is really a main topic for tonight is what is going on with China? I mean, it's a big threat to us. It seems like it's being kind of covered up because maybe they have paid off a lot of our elected officials. It seems like with what Donnie Steele will mention later, they're coming in with some investment into a Ford battery plant here. They've been doing surveillance on us. So we're very fortunate to have with us here Gary Yang. He's in charge of the Michigan Conservative Chinese Americans. Gary, where are you? There you are. Come on up, Gary. Ni hao. Thank you for coming, sir.
Thank you, Matt.
Here, you can hold that.
Sure.
And
sure.
We're going to be videoing right here.
Oh, okay. Okay. I will just stay around here instead of walking around. All right. Thank you very much, and I'm really humbled to be here to share the night with you. Thank you, Matt, for inviting me, and it's really a humbling experience to be here, to see all of you here, right? Some old friends. Just a little bit about myself. Actually, you can tell, I was born and grew up in communist China. And I came here exactly 30 years ago to attend graduate school, to study for a PhD at the University of Michigan. Well, probably not a very good name tonight. And after 3 years, I decided, no, chemistry is not my take, so I went into IT. Otherwise, I probably will end up being another Mr. Walter White in Breaking Bad. Cooking math. No, I'm kidding. So I just want to share what I know, really not from I wouldn't call myself expert, of course, just have the personal perspective because I was born and grew up during the Chinese Cultural Revolution, if you heard about it, right? And also the year I graduated from college, the senior year, was 1989. And if you know some history, you'll probably remember something called Tiananmen Square Massacre. Okay, and that's the year I decided I want to go somewhere with freedom. So that's why I came here, legally. And work in the IT industry, got my green card, got my citizenship, and work in the ERP consulting industry, if you know what that is. It's really software to run the manufacturing companies in automotive components and suppliers that use those software. So, and about 12 years ago, I started my own business in IT consulting. That's pretty much about me. And also, hobby-wise, I'm a Michigan football fan and season ticket holder. Actually, I was in Horseshoe last year. That's a heck of a great experience. Go Blue. Well, we play Ohio State, yes. Yes. I got involved in politics. Actually, I've been pretty dormant, not really, involved in a lot of stuff. Until 2016, I just couldn't stand it anymore, right? And we know the country was on the wrong path. All the shit is going on, so we actually being active in 2016 during the election. I organized the Michigan Chinese Americans to actually donate money to organize the Flying Banner event. I'm not sure if you heard about it. In that year, about 26, 27 states, Chinese Americans, we coordinated and organized the Flying Banner activity. Basically, just hire a plane, just flying the banner around. And I did that during the Michigan's homecoming game because a lot of people outside. There's a banner saying, "Am I Chinese Americans for Trump?" And we did that again with the Michigan State game. Many of you might heard about it. So that's why I can see, Chinese Americans are not really the silent minority anymore. I mean, we could do something. So after the election, with some like-minded friends, we formed the first, and I think today is the only, the Chinese American Conservative Organization, MICA, or Michigan Conservative Chinese Americans. I've been pretty active in the political world here in Michigan during the last few elections. 2018, we organized the fundraiser for the candidate for our governor, Bill Schuette, and also for a lot of door knocking, phone banking activities as well. And also last election, we formed the Zoom town hall meeting for pretty much every one of the gubernatorial candidates for the primary. So I try to introduce those politicians in the conservative side to the Chinese American community, and also invited many of our political officials, elected officials, to some Asian activities like the ACA activities with Senator Ronstadt, Rocky, and so on. So that's what we do, so that's what I got involved in the politics. And I'm serving the Win 11 CDRC for 2.5 terms, and also I'm serving on the newly elected Win 6 and the 6th District Committee as well, and also working as serving the community, being a commissioner in the Northville Township Planning Commission, vice chair. So that's pretty much about myself, okay? The reason I'm come here to share with you is really when you understand what really China CCP is, what they do, okay, and what kind of threat they pose to this great nation. Right. When I grew up in the Cultural Revolution, first I want to share some little experience, right, as a kid. My parents actually was a victim during the Cultural Revolution. My mom told me when I was like 1 year old or whatever, several times she was thinking about suicide because, in China, if you're like enemy of the party or whatever, your kids will be forever condemned. So what's the point for you to live there? So I still remember vividly when I was second grader. One day after school, that time the Chinese wear those, Chinaman Mao emblems, right? Just like today's North Korea, if you know what I'm saying. And there was somebody dropped a porcelain Chinaman Mao's, emblem on the ground. I didn't see it. I stepped on it, it was broken. And all of a sudden, all the kids around me surrounded me. This is a counter-revolutionary kids. This guy should be sent to prison. It terrorized me for like next 2 weeks. I was imagining I would be sent to jail. My parents would be sent to jail. I mean, that's real fear. You imagine for a second grader kid to go through that. All right? And economically, we have been living through the poverty for the majority of my childhood. We live on rations. I mean, very lucky ones have rations. The farmers didn't even have that. And you heard about in 1960, 1951, the great famine in China. You heard about it, right? In the peaceful time, there's no major disaster. Anywhere from 25 to 50 million people starved. You cannot imagine. That's bigger than Canada. Okay, and after I graduated from college, and of course that's 1989, Tiananmen Square, the Tank Man, you have seen all those, right? And I worked in a state-owned enterprise for 2 years before I came here. And that's why socialism doesn't work. You work there, whatever you do have nothing to do with what you make. I mean, every day I remember I spending probably 6 hours just reading newspaper, from the first page to the last page, including the commercials. I mean, that's how, the socialism is. You don't really have an incentive to do anything, all right? And of course, China did embark on the economic side, a kind of a mixture of socialism and capitalism. And that capitalism part really stimulated the growth of the personal growth and also as a nation. However, that may not be really good news going forward. The reason I'm going to say about that is the Communist Party have a tradition, okay, to be extremely deceptive. That started from the 1940s, 1930s, before they took power. They get their influence by the slogans like, okay, absolute equity. Okay, every farmer should have a piece of land. All the worker got a raise and a fair pay, whatever, right? And the capitalists are evil. And to be honest with you, a lot of people at that time, especially the people who are educated, just like in the 30s and 40s, there's a lot of American intellectuals also moving to the left. You heard about it, right? I mean, they sent our first nuclear bomb information to Russia. That's how they created the first nuclear bomb. I mean, the couple actually end up sent to electric chair, right? That's the story I heard. And the same thing there, but they got a lot of deception, and they thought they got to build a country that's free, that's democratic. And after 1949, none of those happens, okay? Because the Communist Party its nature is cruelty and control of the people, okay? Is like, everybody should be equal, but somebody are more equal than others, as you heard it in Animal Farm. And so that's the system they created. That's the system they created. And they keep saying we're peace-loving, we're not gonna, threaten the world. That's not true. And if you know history, in the 1670s, they exported communism ideology to Southeast Asia. Vietnam, Cambodia, heard about Khmer Rouge, where they came from, and Indonesia as well. I mean, a lot more countries. And nowadays, they changed the name. They call it Belt and Road Initiative, if you heard about it. They tried to use their economic power to influence the countries and also export their ideology, their corruption. They're doing that right now in our backyard, in South America, right? So, where's the balloon, by the way? Oh, I don't find it. Which one? You're right. And is a lot more concern nowadays looking at the growth of China is not just because of economic power, but also they're muscling up their military hardware. And they're threatening the balance of power in Asia, and they're threatening Taiwan, a full democracy. So what I can see here is that, we gotta learn from what happened there. I came to this country for freedom and to get away from socialism, but unfortunately, it looks like this country actually going toward that direction, and we got to stop it. And we got to stop it because we know what that produces. Look at China today. We're talking about, Carrie's video, right, showing the technology, what technology can do. Well, technology can do good things, but it can do evil as well. Okay? And in China, what they have there is electronic censorship and electronic surveillance. You cannot say what you want to say, and you'll be punished for saying something they don't want to hear. And they have probably the most advanced AI and facial recognition software in the world for controlling the society. They have the most CCTVs in the world, okay? Monitor everybody's move and everywhere. We're talking about cashless society, right? That's actually pretty scary. You probably heard some Chinese friends talking about, oh, we have this WeChat app or something like that. I don't use cash anywhere. I call a cab and do this. I don't use cash at all. It's all through the app. But you realize actually what we're giving up is your privacy. The government knows where you are, what you did, okay, and what you eat. They knows everything. The big data AI in China is pretty big. The technology really is helping to build China into a true realization of George Orwell's 1984 and beyond. We don't want our country to be there as well. So we have cash, keep it. Keep it good old cash, all right? So, and also I want to say here is that there's a lot of threat from China, and let's look at, don't forget what happened in the last 3 years. What happened in the last 3 years, by the way? COVID. Where it came?
To flatten the curve. 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
Oh, there you go. There you go. And it came from Wuhan, right? Because I grew up in Hubei province. Wuhan is the capital city of Hubei province. My grandparents used to live in Wuhan, just about 2 miles from the ground zero, the P4 virology lab of Wuhan. And people actually warned years ago, before they built that. A French newspaper was talking about they should not help China build this P4 lab. Because when you have this lab with Chinese, their tendency to build bioweapons and also their poor management of such system is a biological Chernobyl waiting to happen. That's actually what happened in 2004, 2006. I think a French newspaper talking about it. I think that's exactly what happened. And that's exactly what happened. And they pretty much got away with it. They turned war upside down for 3 years, killed so many people, And I don't think Americans going after them. Well, because somehow we got involved too. Dr. Fauci, I think. I don't believe that's a conspiracy theory, to be honest with you. Okay? And so they are actually creating a lot of damage to the society and the influence, and militarily. And let's see what happened in Ukraine, right? We see what happened in Ukraine. But you know what? That's actually a much smaller, event compared to what may happen pretty soon. Okay? That's China will invade Taiwan. That's my opinion. They will. Here's the reason why. Number one, Xi Jinping is a dictator. This dictator doesn't listen to anybody. And dictators have a very common trait is they're surrounded by people who say things they want to hear. And of course, they will misjudge. That's what happened to Putin, right? And this probably will happen to China as well. So we in America need to be aware of that. And people talking about what happened in this country and during the COVID. I mean, I probably forgot one thing I forgot to mention. Not only the civilians, but also in the 3 years of COVID, China put an inhumane control of the society in the name of the COVID management. Or they call it zero COVID policy, if you heard about it. Okay? And yes, initially they were successful controlling the spread. But eventually, when the Omicron came in, it actually started blowing up. And last April through June, I believe, they locked down Shanghai so bad, people were logging in their apartment for a month, 2 months. And some people starved. Some people starved. And we're not talking about our house here. I mean, think about it. If you are told to live in your house and cannot leave your house for a month, you got to bring your gun and kill somebody. Right? And live in a small apartment and stay there for a month or 2 months. How can you imagine that? And not only that, they actually group down people, get people bused into so-called quarantine facility just because you might have a little exposure. The rule is like if you have somebody, got exposure to a COVID patient, I mean, through the app, they can track you. The story is like in a whole building, right, apartment building, the whole apartment residents will be moved to the quarantine location with very terrible situation. So one of the young guy actually refused to leave, and that's a story I want to share with you, how terrible it is, how desperate people feel. A young guy, and then the police came in and say, you got to go. You cannot stay in your own apartment. And why? I say, somebody got exposed to the COVID in this building, but I have no exposure to anyone. I stay in my apartment for the last 3 weeks. No, you still need to go. I don't want to go. What are you going to do to me? Well, not only you will be arrested, but your future 3 generations will be negatively impacted. Do you know what the guy said? We're the last generation. Thank you very much. You think about it. For a person to say something like that, can you imagine the despair, the terror, but also a defiance? That's what that kind of regime is doing. Okay, we got to be careful what they're going to happen there, right? And people are curious, what going to happen to China, right? I mean, there's a white paper movement just a few months ago, and now this couple weeks, there's something called a white hair movement. I don't know if you heard about it. It's a little bit different. White paper movement is people so fed up with this control, with no way you can control it, but it's control people's life, and they went on the street and holding a piece of white paper. White paper meaning what? I cannot say anything. I cannot say anything. So actually arrest those very, very brave young kids, mostly young girls, okay, arrest them. But it became a movement and it really scared the government a little bit, okay? And after the COVID thing, they just say, oh, you know what, it just starts spreading. So they just do nothing. A lot of people got killed. I mean, over 1 million elderly probably killed within a month, okay? I don't know if you heard about it. That's what happened. Omicron can kill people too. All right, and then they depleted all the fund for the social program, for the elderly, for their medical stuff. So start cutting their benefits. So the old people now start rising up, go on the street. I mean, 100,000 people showed up in Wuhan to protest that. Okay, we're the old people. Why take our benefits? We work the whole life for this country. right? But they run out of money. They run out of money. So social unrest will be there for a while, and because this, okay, it's hard to control. But what I can see here is that, when this happens, the communists always have a tendency to do what? How they can distract the social unrest domestically? By starting a war. By starting a war. And Xi Jinping has always been very clear what his goal is, to unite China, to take Taiwan back militarily, by force. So that's, some people even predict that probably happen in 2025. So in that case, I would, probably some of you may not like what I'm going to say here, but something that Biden did, I would say is not wrong. Okay, his CHIP Act is really good thing to do, because you got to cut their technology power. You have to cut the supply of the chips. That's the right thing to do. That's actually something should happen maybe a year ago, okay? But now they're doing is better late than never. And so when China actually will, they will actually run into this kind of adventure to invade Taiwan. And you know in Taiwan there's a company called TSMC, right? That's the largest chip manufacturer in the world. They produce 90% of the high-end chips. We cannot lose Taiwan. Taiwan is a crown jewel of the free world. All right? So that's the threat we have to recognize and we have to know. And also, as America, please don't repeat the mistake the Chinese made. Thank you.
Okay. She's the lead of.
No, please. Is anybody, if we could, thank you so much, Gary Yang. Is there questions?
I have a question.
Well, because we record our things, and if you're yelling from the background, nobody's going to hear you on our YouTube channel. So, but anyway, anybody else? If we have, all right, we'll move on. But Gary Yang, thank you so much.
There's a question there. Yeah. You asked for questions.
Yep.
He wants to ask one.
Well, come on up.
Okay. I know you're short on time.
You get 15 seconds.
A quick question. Gretchen Whitmer is the lead economic forum for the state and country for all of this that you're talking about. She has dominated chip emplacement in our country by foreign entities. Battery, chip, yada, yada, yada. And Mark Hackle actually is going to take her job running as a Republican, just so you know. And he has already implemented Macomb County. Everything is documented, videotaped, and on video screen. Oakland County is a part of all this. I want to ask you, how can we stop this?
Great question. I think probably one of the things you were referring to was the Ford and the Colt joint venture for the battery manufacturing. It's a pretty tricky matter. Let me be honest with you, from what I understand. I know that Colt was started by a guy actually graduated from same class as I did in Shanghai Jiao Tong University, and we have mutual friends. It's not a state-owned enterprise, it's a private enterprise. However, we need to know in 2017, I think that's not a well-known fact in America. In 2017, China passed the law. The law states any Chinese citizens or entities, meaning any institutions or companies, have obligation to cooperate with Chinese intelligence services whenever called upon. This means you have no choice but have to be a spy if they decide you should be. This really put the Chinese citizens who travel, outside the country and Chinese companies in a very, very terrible situation. And so it's the concern that you're talking about is absolutely warranted. and we need to be careful. It's a kind of a balance between, develop our economy here and have technology in place, at the same time, don't jeopardize our sovereignty and security. And those kind of projects must be scrutinized. I'm not going to say it's 100% say no way, right? Because we also, as Republicans, we're talking about we want jobs. We want the economy to grow jobs, and at the same time be conscious of that, okay? So to answer the question, but secondly, I would kind of a little tangent to that I want to mention is please make sure you differentiate the CCP and law-abiding Chinese Americans here. Okay, there's a huge difference. Just look at me, right? And we just want to make sure, we don't repeat the past mistake like the Japanese internship camps during World War II and McCarthyism in a way, because there's certainly some historical context to them. However, we got to be learning from those mistakes as well. So that's what I'm going to say.
Anybody else have a question? Come on up here, and I will. I'll hold the mic. No, come over here. Come over here. I'll hold the microphone.
Yes, my question is about the chips. You're a computer guy. Is my understanding that the Netherlands produces the machines that make the chips?
ASML.
And that, yes, and they will not sell the machine that makes the latest chips to the Chinese. Is that true?
That's true. That's true. Actually, this is what this administration actually did well. Not only they blocked in the CHIPS Act, right? The CHIP Act is very severe, actually. I don't know if you know the details, and that's kind of related to your question.
Yes.
The CHIP Act actually forbidden the American companies, okay, to give the technology or products for the advanced chip manufacturing in China. Not only that, if you're an American citizen or American green card holder, you cannot work in those industries for Chinese companies unless you get approved by the State Department with a presumption of denial. This is great. This is really depleting their brain power to compete against us. Because when they compete against us, you look at what happened in Ukraine. What's winning? Why the Ukrainians beating the mighty Russia? Because technology. Yeah, they are. Their technology. It's technology. But you know what? If we have a war against China, if we fight that war, technology, we may not be having an upper hand. Facial recognition, they're doing better than us. AI, in certain areas, they're doing better than us. Of course, they're using our chips. So to your question that, the gentleman's question, America also persuaded Japan and Holland to forbidden the export of certain equipment from ASML, for example, for high-end chip manufacture. Actually, they got further, even some more commercial available, like 14 nanometer or 28 nanometer equipments. I don't think they can do that anymore. So that's great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Just come on up here.
Okay.
Congressman?
I want to answer that question, too. We're focusing on chips. That's where I have a little bit of problem, because we're focusing on the chips. Investment goes where it's welcome and stays where it's appreciated. We need to bring back manufacturing and technology to this country and keep it here. I'm not running for office, just so you know. That's the way it works. It's not just the chips, it's the masks. How many of you couldn't get masks when you wanted them? I didn't want them. Right? Just so you know, folks, there's a whole bunch of stuff. We have to make investment welcome and appreciated. And if we don't do that in this country, they'll continue to ship business overseas. God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Automotive industry definitely suffer from that supply chain disruption because of chip shortages, because we don't have them here in this country. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Gary, over 2,000, 3,000 year history, China has exported to us a lot, paper, gunpowder, silk, and etc. And today they export most of the product that makes middle-class life possible. But they have imported only one thing, which is ideology. First they imported Buddhism from India, then communism and capitalism. Do you think that they are still looking for a new ideology? Would they be open to our system somehow in the near future?
Very good question, sir. Very good question. This actually is what happened in the last 20, 30 years. After Tiananmen Square, there's a brief period that China, America really cooled down the relationship with China. But afterwards, they started engaging more, from Bush to Clinton to George W. Bush and to Obama. The assumption at that time was, consensus was like, if you allow China to develop economically, when people get money, they will have their desire to have the freedom and democracy. And that assumption did not pan out. It did not pan out at all. Actually, you can see they get more control because technology advances. They have more control on people's life. They do. And so I don't think they have a desire. I mean, you got to understand CCP. Number one thing, what is in their mind? Empower forever. Empower forever, control everything. So whatever they do, it's not about, if you're some Western work or something that can be beneficial to them, they will. But you know what? It's not going to be benefiting people. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Gary. State Representative Donnie Steele.
Thank you, sir.
What is going on with that battery plant with Ford? And we're putting our Michigan money to attract them in, and the Chinese are involved. What kind of risk are we taking doing something like this?
Well, I was in an appropriations committee, because I am on appropriations, and they want to use tax dollars to be able to help subsidize the manufacturing plant in Marshall. And it's a $3.5 billion investment from Ford, but they have already approved at the state and the Senate $210 million to Ford, and they're asking for an additional $800 million for the infrastructure to be able to have the lot be able to be ready. And they said that it's just for the infrastructure. It could be John Deere, it could be Ford, it could be, I don't know, Amazon that can move in there, but still it's our taxpayer money getting a lot, not a lot, but a development site ready, shovel ready. And the reason why I just wanted to bring it up is I think that they said that at first they were going to do it with the Chinese to do the battery, to do the lithium batteries.
The Celt company, right?
Yes,
Okay.
and now I think that they're backpedaling from that, but they're still asking for the $800 million. And my whole point here to speak tonight is to reach out to your senators and your state representatives and ask them to vote no, because even the Republicans are torn with that project because they have that district in Marshall. I mean, so they're looking for their residents to support it for their residents and their communities. And so if you say that you don't want them to spend that money, then I think that says a lot more so than me saying it. So thank you.
State Rep Donnie Steele. Are we at any risk having the Chinese have work with Ford on a battery plant here, do you think?
That's what I'm saying is I'm kind of torn on that too. Well, from one side, we're talking about we need to have a supply chain independence. We don't want to be held hostage, right? When the things that we need, like a battery, today's technology, right? Batteries for electric cars, the chips, we want them to be onshore here in the United States. So whatever we do to get those technology and the manufacturing know-how and experience back here, I think that's a plus. That's a good thing. That's my opinion. At the same time, we've got to make sure national security is ensured. So that's really my take on that.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Gary Yang with the Michigan Conservative Chinese Americans.